I am a sleep specialist, and I'm happy to see kids, adults, really lifespan. And I'm also very interested in autism and started seeing more and more adults on the spectrum, and they were having sleep problems. But what I found was I really needed to think about what they were doing during the day, take a holistic approach, because if I just focused on their sleep, it wasn't enough. I needed to understand, what were they doing? What kind of meaningful activities were they involved in? Were they doing sports? Were they exercising? Were they working or volunteering? Were they going to school? What were they doing at night? And I found that if I could focus on finding meaningful activities for them to do, their sleep would fall into place. But that there was this limited repertoire of activities that these adults were involved in.
People have been recognizing that autism is a relatively common issue. The one issue is that people think about this as only occurring in children. And of course, these children who have autism grow up to be adults who have autism. And in fact, basically we have about 50,000 people who are turning 18 who have autism every year.
So for about the last 10 years or so, my work is focused on trying to understand what happens when people with autism leave high school. What are the characteristics of people who have a successful transition to adulthood, and how can we improve outcomes for these individuals? I was working on a study of adolescents and adults with autism, and when families would come into the study, one thing that we heard over and over again is what's going to happen when my son or daughter leaves high school. And because that was something that was coming up a lot, I looked into the research literature at that time to say, well, what do we know? What can we tell them? And the answer was really almost nothing.
Mental health issues in adults on the autism spectrum, I think, are finally starting to get the recognition that they've really needed all along as being so integrally tied to quality of life. So many things that are risk factors for depression in the general population, such as bullying, lack of employment or underemployment, also psychological kinds of factors like a low self-esteem and feeling of self-worth, sense of failure. There are many of these things that we are noticing now in our research that adults, particularly young adults with autism, are experiencing at sort of increased rates compared to the general population.
So the transition needs of youth with autism are similar to the transition needs of any young person. Becoming self-determining is just a natural developmental task for any young person. And we know from watching young people move through adolescence and into adulthood how important it is to equip them with the skills and the supports and the opportunities to be the primary steerer of their life.
So the Spectrum Pathways program is an individualized program that's focused on helping adults on the autism spectrum set and attain their goals. So we're really putting these adults into the driver's seat. For many of these adults, they haven't had experiences with setting their own goals. They've had others set goals for them. So this project is focused on shifting that and helping them identify what's really important for them and how to attain it.
Spectrum Pathways is a 3-month program with 2 phases. So in the first phase, individuals on the autism spectrum come to Vanderbilt, and they engage in a variety of activities that are meaningful to them. And in the process of this week, the individuals on the spectrum will learn certain skills that will support them. So first of all, they'll learn how to set goals, but they'll also learn, for example, how to be successful when they work on those goals. So mindfulness-based stress reduction is a huge part of what we do. As our adults on the spectrum go out in the 3 months that follows the in-person part, and they start setting goals and attaining those goals, we want to make sure that they feel comfortable. And then what we're doing is we're pairing up each of our participants with coaches. Now, it may be a different coach every week, but we have basically gotten Vanderbilt students involved in the coaching experience, which is so cool.
My job as Dean of the Martha Rivers Ingram Commons is to make sure that each one of our entering class, each member, all 1,600 of them, have opportunities for faculty engagement, and particularly opportunities to explore research that they might be interested in pursuing. Undergraduate students come to Vanderbilt in part because they have an interest in understanding how we can solve problems. And the best way to understand how problems get solved is to be part of a research experience. No matter the discipline, all research at Vanderbilt is focused on solving a problem. And so when we can connect students with the researchers on campus that care about the same problems they care about, it's magic. And it's almost like the rest of it, the process takes care of itself. The students are really hungry to see how that happens.
What drew me to the Spectrum Pathways program was that I read an article in the Vanderbilt University Medical Center Reporter about the program, and it was just this really interesting piece on this new innovative program that was helping autistic adults not just learn better social skills or have lower incidence of mental health disorders, but actually pursue their goals and work toward them in like a non-judgmental atmosphere of acceptance. And I thought that was just such a novel way to go about this.
Once our students leave Vanderbilt, and frankly, even while they're on our campus, they're going to be exposed to a population that's very neurodiverse. That's just the way the future is going to be. And so we need to make sure that they understand that there are multiple types of learning out there, there are multiple types of processing information, and they need to be able to be allies, friends, leaders, companions, and teachers to everyone they're going to meet.
I am an undergraduate volunteer and also research assistant in the Spectrum Pathways program. So from my point of view, it is really important that work environments and educational environments include neurodiverse individuals, just because these different perspectives create a richer sense of community. Everyone benefits from working with people that are different from them. And I feel that at the end of the day, people are gaining these skills working with these people that just make them a better person and make them a better employee and make them a better friend and a better part of their families.
So often when we think about measuring outcomes for individuals on the spectrum or other intellectual and developmental disabilities, we focus on things like employment or independent living, and we look past, or it's harder to gauge, quality of life and things like interacting with other people, feeling like they have a sense of belonging in the community, expanding their knowledge or experiencing new things. All of that falls under quality of life. And part of community engagement is trying to increase the possibility of that happening for people with disabilities and on the spectrum.
To adequately address these needs, we needed to have collaboration and multidisciplinary collaboration in order to carefully craft the curriculum and ensure that the needs of our participants are being met as they're in the program.
So the collaboration with multiple people across Vanderbilt, I think, is what has made the Spectrum Pathways program what it is. So bringing in expertise in medical issues and having expertise in mental health and expertise in employment and post-secondary education, but also having the right connections to be able to have students involved and to be able to facilitate that, I think is really the core of what the program is, and wouldn't have been possible if it was just one person with one specific skill set who was trying to put it together.
So we really want to try to think about how we find people and identify them with developmental disabilities, how we care for them throughout their life. And part of the issue now is thinking about how we're caring for people as they become adults and how we provide the best opportunities for them. And that's where I think the Spectrum program is really fantastic, because this allows people with autism to start transitioning to adulthood.
One of the future directions for our program that we're really excited about is involving parents. For up to this point, the focus has really been on the individual with autism, which it should be, but we're working on developing a parent training component that would be delivered through the internet that parents could view regardless of whether their kids are in the program or not. We could not have done this without the Treatment and Research Institute for Autism Spectrum Disorders, also called Triad, at the Vanderbilt Kennedy Center. The Vanderbilt Kennedy Center has a wealth of resources that have been really supportive in advancing our work. And the TIPS program has really been transformative, the trans-institutional programs. We're so appreciative to them for their support of our program and also making this video possible.